And they're all pumped on Sam. How are you going to get Sam out of Geffen onto Warner Brothers? I mean, it was really tricky dealings. And David Geffen thought that David Lee Roth would be an impossible act to follow, he told Sammy, and he was trying to keep him on the record label. And there came this deal. He would let Van Halen have Sammy Hagar for the first album, and that Geffen would get like 50% of the album, plus a solo album immediately following, of which they would get 100% of. And Mo Austin from Warner Brothers, he was all for naming the band Van Hagar, and there's that whole story about him hearing, "Why Can't This Be Love?" and him putting his finger in the air saying, "I smell money," and the whole thing got greenlit halfway through the record. They were already halfway through the record. But before they even knew they could actually release it. Now, the funny thing is that Sammy said the way songwriting would happen in Van Halen is I would walk in on their jams, pick them apart, and made songs out of them. First of all, that's cocky as fuck, right, Dave? I mean...
Yeah, it is, but honestly, I don't think he's wrong.
Really?
Because from everything I've read and seen, Ed is a riff guy, he's a jam guy, and Sam is the melody guy. He can come in and write songs and finish songs. So I really think that is Sam's gift. And Sam has always said, Ed writes the music, I come in, I do the lyrics, I do the vocal melodies, and he helps put the songs together. I don't think he's far off.
Okay. And that's interesting. Now, there's a bunch of mistakes in the book that is atrocious. Like they call "I'll wait," which I was like, what the fuck, dude? That was one of the. I mean, there's a bunch, and we'll point them out as time goes on.
Well, let me tell you the first. Well, this isn't a mistake, but the first thing when you look at the cover of the book, and you see Sam in the black shirt, that was photoshopped. That's not the original picture.
Oh, wow.
Sam was originally wearing a black and white print shirt, and he was not wearing the chicken foot necklace that he's wearing there. He was wearing a couple of other things, and then they came in and they photoshopped the book because he was pushing chicken foot at the time.
Oh, wow.
So you can't even get past the cover without it being close, but not quite. And that is a recurring theme.
Oh man,
throughout
there's
the book.
There's more things that are dead wrong. We'll point out as we go along. So now I always remember this being so awkward. The announcement of Sammy being in Van Halen was botched. Sammy played Farm Aid with his band in September of 1985. And apparently, Ed was going to join him on stage, and they were going to kind of make the announcement that Sammy was going to Van Halen. And Sam ended up cursing live on the air, which caused them to dump out, and it dumped the announcement. Can you believe this, Dave?
Yeah, and then the act that was supposed to come after him apparently didn't get on the air.
Right.
And they held it against him for a long time because David Louser, Sam's drummer, tried out for the band.
Right.
And he made it pretty far until they found out he was Sammy Hagar's drummer. And then that was it. He never heard from them again.
Oh, my God. That was crazy. But I remember as a kid that recording, because it's so funny because back then, the media was so different. So, like Sammy Hagar's playing with Van Halen and what's going on, and or Eddie's playing with Sammy, and is he going to join Van Halen? And then I heard it on the radio. I didn't see it on the TV. I heard it on the radio, and you hear him playing rock and roll with Sam, and you could tell it's been sort of like spliced in and out. And then I was like, well, nothing was announced. And Sammy thought it was announced, but it wasn't, because if you were at the concert, it was announced. But if you didn't hear it over the airwaves, it was dumped out. So I thought, wow, what a botched moment that was. And I thought that was interesting to kind of clear up because I never knew what happened there. Then he talks about this Benihana dinner that they had for Al's birthday where Al took off his pants and he was dancing on the grill and fell on the grill and was burning his body all over the place. I mean, it just goes to show you the level of alcoholism that was going on. So, Sam really painted a very strong alcoholic picture there, and with the excessive drinking and the shotgunning beers all the time. And he says when it came time to actually record the album. We needed a new producer because Ted Templeman, who was producing David Lee Roth's solo albums, had supposedly been bad rapping us to Warner Brothers behind our back, so we weren't going to work with him. Now, this
is a different story than Ted Templeman
completely
tells in his recent
And let me
book.
tell you something. I believe Ted's version because what Ted said makes sense, that they would want him to come in there and really take charge. This is an important album. It's a transition album. Of course you're going to want Ted there. I don't think Ted wanted to do it because after what he went through in 1984, and I already saw the alliance he had with Don Landy, he no longer had that partnership with Don Landy that he had before, and that Ed and Don Landy was sort of the partnership. So Ted was like, you know what, I want nothing to do with this. But Sam and his manager, Ed Loeffler, who was also now Van Halen's manager, kept hounding him and hounding him. And here, Sam writes it off as he was bad rapping us to Warner Brothers. I mean, why would he do that? That doesn't make any sense. And then he says, who's been producing David Lee Roth's solo albums. And at the time, he didn't have multiple albums, so that's kind of weird that he made that plural. He says, so we decided we're not going to work with him? I mean, come on, man. And Sam had suggested Mick Jones. Now, he also credits Mick Jones for pulling dreams out of him. He said the 5150 tour was supposed to start in remote places like Alaska and Hawaii, and they had to reschedule the tour because the album wasn't ready, and this band is always delaying with their albums. It's incredible. He said that 5150 took like a month to record, and it was longer to mix because 5150 as a studio wasn't really fully equipped to do the job. What did you make of this, Dave?
That it wasn't equipped to do the job?
Well, no, to
Is that
do
what he
the
said?
mixing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thought hiring him as a producer was the right move. I mean, that guy was riding high with Foreigner, and he knew what would sell as a rock band.
Right.
And he, like you said, he totally got like one of Sam's best vocals and one of Van Halen's, one of the best songs on the album there.
Yeah,
so
sure.
He really contributed. Now, I don't really know how involved he was because I've seen some other interviews with Mick Jones where, he'll tell you like, I wasn't really as involved as you might think I had been because Ed was really running the show.
Right.
And the record company really wanted him there because they really weren't confident that Van Halen could do it by themselves and get the album done.
Right.
I thought it was a decent choice. I thought it was interesting that they picked somebody who was in an active band and doing his own thing, and like, wow, does he really have time to produce another band while he's doing the Foreigner thing?
Amazing.
But hey, it worked.
That's right, that's right. First of all, he had a lot of balls here. He says, I told the guys I didn't want to be in a cover band. He's talking about doing old Van Halen songs. He says, I told the guys they want to be in a cover band. I was not going to go do any shows until we had an album, and when we did, I didn't want to play too much of the old shit. They were totally down with that. Which I just couldn't believe the balls of that statement. I mean, I don't under-fucking-stand how you take a job, then start a new band. Then don't hang on to the Van Halen name. Start a brand new fucking band.
And they were really down with that, 100%.
I just don't understand that. I don't understand how that's fucking possible. See, I disagree with Sam. I think this is how I think, because if you look at the set list, okay, it's literally the entire new album with the exception of Inside, which, by the way, is such a strange song on that album, right? I mean, it really just stands out as like, how is this on this album? It's
like him trying to be David Lee Roth.
No, it's like the entire song is them making fun of David Lee Roth. But it's like here, that song is like, you get like this full conceived 8-song album. So you get to the 9th song, and it's like, the song itself is basically like a jam that they just goof on top of it, lyric-wise. It's just strange, right? I mean, it just doesn't fit. I would love to know the story behind that song, but they're making fun of David Lee Roth, that whole fucking song. I mean, it's ridiculous with the shoes and this and that. I walk like somebody else, all this shit. That's a little bizarre. So anyway, they started the tour a week before the album dropped because they delivered the album late. And the first show, Dave, he says the first show was March 27th, 1987. That is in print.
I know. I saw it. Bam. Wrong year. We all know how Sam never gets a year right.
So now he calls
But who fact-checked this? Who fact-checked the book? Was Sam his own fact-checker? Because that would explain a lot.
Unbelievable, because there's tons of this going on throughout the whole book. So he does admit, though, to being nervous. And he says, I refused to sing Jump. It was just hard for me. I write my own songs. And then he has the wrong lyrics for Jump. Hey, you, who was it? Hey, baby, how you been? That's not the lyrics to Jump. I don't know. That's a little strange. He said he sang Jump twice on tour, and that was it. He also has this wrong. In the 1984 tour, they told me they did 8 songs in a 2-hour show. I mean, can you believe this?
Oh, yeah. I was, there's no way. I mean, I do know that in 1984, there were less songs than, say, the Diver Down tour.
Yes.
And the solos were longer.
Oh, forget it, yeah.
Right. And doesn't he also say that Al was taking a half-hour drum solo? Which was completely ridiculous.
Come on. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's exaggerating. But the funny part is that, they were doing less songs for the 1984 tour.
Yeah.
But for this tour, they were doing the same thing.
I know.
They didn't do a lot of songs, and the songs on 5150 were longer in length than traditionally the Van Halen songs were.
Sure.
Everybody still got their solo.
Yep.
So while he's like, they only did, 2 songs during the whole set, and obviously I'm exaggerating.
Yeah.
But really, they did the same thing for the 5150 show.
Exactly.
In part because Sam did not want to sing any old stuff.
And it's very clear that there was a negotiation. I meant to say this earlier, that they did 8 of the 9 songs on the album. Okay, so that's 8 songs. I guarantee you Ed Loeffler said 2 Sammy Hagars, 2 Van Halen, 2 covers. And that's what they did. They did I Can't Drive 55, and they did One Way to Rock. They did Ain't Talk About Love. They did Panama. They did Rock and Roll. And then they did, You Really Got Me, which is a cover anyway. But it's like...
I guarantee you it was Sam. I mean, maybe Ed Loeffler agreed with that.
There was some sort of negotiation. I'm telling you.
Oh, right. Oh, and by the way, the other fact he got wrong about the first show was that he said they opened up with One Way to Rock. Incorrect.
Well, you want to know why he said that? Because I think he used Live Without a Net as a reference.
I'm sure he did.
Yep.
But, dude, he was on that tour.
I know.
And he knows that almost every night they opened up with You Really Got Me.
Right. Exactly.
So come on, Sam. Give me a break.
He's
what bravado he has. We opened up with one of my songs.
I know.
No, you didn't. Admittedly, you opened up with a cover, but a cover from Van Halen's first album.
Right, exactly.
Come on, man.
He's unbelievable. And then he says here, before I joined Van Halen didn't have a particularly tight show. And then he said Al would sleep right up to showtime, then shotgun 3 to 4 beers. When I joined Van Halen, they had, listen to this. When I joined Van Halen, they had been draping off the back of the hall, cutting their capacity in half, and walking away with a few $1,000s. On the 5150 tour, we designed the stage so we could be seen from everywhere. And when I was in the band, Van Halen was a huge, quick seller. Every album went to number 1. So he's really pounding his chest here. He really goes for it.
I won't say I disagree that Van Halen wasn't a tight ship. I mean, it looked loosey-goosey when you saw the show or one show. But Van Halen was infamous for, keeping the set list pretty tight, pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Dave would do his spiels regularly. It sounded spontaneous, but it really wasn't. I mean, he had the Eminem rider in there just to make sure that everything was on the up and up with the venue. I mean, it wasn't just like them showing up and saying, well, let's see what happens. I mean, their live tours were pretty tight.
It's unbelievable. The things he says here is he says Al wasn't as good a drummer sober. He thought Al was better when he was drunk, which was lovely. And then he also says that...
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what?
What?
I hate to say this.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
But, all right, I wouldn't say it that way. What I'm going to say is
Right.
I really prefer Al's drumming on the albums from 1978 to 1980.